Okay. Well, welcome to another episode of Conflict and Cuisine, where we will look at our region, the Middle East, from our studios at the Jerusalem Post here in Jerusalem,
Hmm.
where we are at this very moment overlooking this amazing holy
Cityscape.
cityscape. An hour or so before sunset, and I think what they call the golden hour. So, we're going to talk about what's happened recently in this region, the Middle East, because it's boring here. Nothing happens, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, cats get stuck in trees. There's
yeah,
nothing
this
going
is
on.
right. This is the Middle East of the Midwest.
Right.
So we have really nothing to talk about, unfortunately. But we're going to try to get through this and see what's happened in the last few weeks. Now, what I recall on December 8th is that the Assad regime fell unexpectedly.
Hmm.
And then in the last few days, we've had the visit of the Israeli prime minister to the top of Mount Hermon,
Yes.
which I was not aware of. But the Mount Hermon is around 2,800 meters. Israel controlled Mount Hermon, quote unquote, but did not control the top part,
That's so wild when you think about it.
right?
Yeah.
So the prime minister went there. We'll talk about that at the end.
Right.
But let's talk about some of the other interesting things that have happened. Last night, I saw that there was going to be Saudi-Israel normalization, and we've been talking about that a lot. I assume you run the Jerusalem Post magazine, Erica
Yes.
Schachne,
Hi.
and maybe you could tell us a bit what you think about it or where you've seen that in your coverage.
Of normalization.
Yeah, I mean, Saudi Arabia, Israel, we're talking about it all the time, I guess, for the last year, but it never really happens.
Right. It's funny because we've been talking about it since the Abraham Accords, and it seemed like it was actually going to happen at that point. But then the U.S. administration with Biden came in, and it feels like we've been having normalization, but hiding in plain sight for a long time. And to me, it's just more posturing. What they said recently that we have to, do something specific on Gaza. That sounds very vague, but to me, I think it's just boilerplate that they're saying to seem pro-Palestinian and virtue signal to the Arabists and the pro-Palestinians. And my opinion has always been that Saudi and the Gulf states, they care more about money and deterring Iran than they care about religion. So it makes sense for them to normalize with us. What do you think?
It makes sense for them to normalize, but it also strikes me as one of these things like, one of those like TV shows you watch where you want two characters to get together, but they never actually seem to. Like, I
Right.
don't know if it's Lost or Seinfeld, whatever your favorites are. But I just feel like,
True crime.
or what was that one, Sex and the City, right? And she had that boyfriend named Big or
She
whatever.
did
I don't
end
know.
up with him, I gotta say.
So eventually,
Right, not in the sequels.
like, because then there was the movies. I feel like the Saudi Israel thing is something that we hear about. It's constantly being reported. People like to report it.
Right.
And then you immediately have this climb down, like we did yesterday, I think. It was reported, breaking news, there's been a breakthrough, Saudi-Israel normalization. And then what we heard was, well, the Saudis want a Palestinian state. And then the prime minister's office put out a statement saying, well, the prime minister's working against a Palestinian state, so that's not going to happen. So then nothing happened, right? I mean, and so we kind of got back to what we were used to,
Right.
this like weird process. But in your view, it doesn't necessarily matter that much. And anyway, your view is that you think the Saudis are kind of on our side anyway, so it may not actually matter, this issue of kind of sealing the deal.
Um, I think that it's just a lot of dialogue, like kind of wink wink, because everybody's just waiting for Trump to be inaugurated. And there's not much time left, even though it seems eternal. We're waiting to see like what they manage to squeeze in this lame duck season. But I don't think, I think people they're just gonna go full force ahead with a lot of different things when Trump is in. So that's what's happening right now. They're talking about it a little early. So Saudi Arabia is like, no, 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 we care about the Palestinian state. And then Israel's like, no, 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 but we're gonna build. We care. We're not a pro-Palestinian state. So it's just going back to their usual positions. But we're already fairly normalized. Like I remember when Saudi Arabia was considered the big bad wolf of the Middle East. It was so scary, the kingdom, and there was the explosion that killed so many U.S. soldiers. And I thought, my impression was it's a very scary place to visit. I would not want to find myself there as an American, as an Israeli, as a woman. And now I have a good friend who does conference planning, and she's always in Riyadh. She even tells me she gets female Uber drivers. So it feels like it's normalized,
Female
at
Uber
least on the
driver
outside.
would be Fuber.
Fuber.
Fuber drivers.
Moober,
Right.
the MBSer. Yeah. So, I mean,
But would you go? Let's say we get you the tickets tomorrow, and would you go?
I don't think at this point I'd go to any Arab state, and
Because of the October 7th and the war in Gaza continuing.
also because of how they killed, how they managed to kill that rabbi in Abu Dhabi.
Right, that was very bad.
And I think people can be gotten to it anywhere, and you can't get too comfortable.
But you could probably go with a cover. You could pretend to be Canadian.
Oh,
for
I would
instance.
never do that.
Well,
I'm too American. I blame
maybe
Canada.
Bolivian, or
Oh yeah, like an American-speaking daughter of a diplomat.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm from Bolivia. I've always wanted to see the Gulf. It's really interesting. My father's maybe going to be posted here as the next Bolivian ambassador. or
Right.
something.
I just need to brush up on my Bolivian.
I think it's
topography.
Spanish. You mean Spanish or
South
where? Oh,
American.
like even where it is.
Where
for
it
instance,
is,
right?
what it looks like, what they do.
I think it's a landlocked country.
Oh, Paraguay is, and Paraguay.
Well, Paraguay is right.
has
Paraguay's
been in the
landlocked
news.
because they're moving their embassy.
Right, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem,
Right,
which is
okay.
lovely.
They're moving the embassy to Jerusalem, and Israel's taking the embassy out of Ireland
Ah,
and
finally.
moving it to Moldova.
Yes. So I wouldn't think that Moldova is quite as interesting from a tourist perspective as, let's say, Dublin or County Kerry, but from
or
a
Cork.
pro-Israel perspective, I think it's a great move. The Irish have been absolutely disgusting.
And you've been to Moldova.
I have. Early in my career, I went to Limud, for the former Soviet Union, in Kishinev,
Right.
and it was fascinating.
Which is well known primarily because of a Jewish pogrom.
Yes.
But now I think Moldova is considered quite close to Israel. It's a country that's up and coming. It's a place that's friendly.
Right.
That's what they say.
It's on the border of war zones of
Ukraine, right.
and then during when Haredim were trying to go to the Kever.
Oh, that's right.
On Rosh Hashanah to go to Uman, they massed at the border of Moldova. So, yeah, it's a strategic place near Belarusia.
Right. So So I think
Belarus.
therefore. So not bad. We get no more Ireland, no more. I mean, but we can go to Northern Ireland. That's still part of the
Yeah,
UK.
that's the interesting part. Even
Right.
though
That's Dublin, no, or Belfast.
Belfast, and I think it's
Right, Belfast.
them,
yeah.
the IRA, that empathize with the pro-Palestinian people and the fighters
Right,
because they
but the thing is,
feel-
in Northern Ireland, you have I guess, if the IRA or let's say more Irish Catholics were more tended to be slightly more pro-Palestinian in some of their narratives, but the Protestants tended to be more pro-Israel.
Yes,
I think.
that is true.
So there's still that part, and
There
that
is
and
that
you'd
part.
still have access to the Israeli embassy or something there because you'd have the one in London or wherever they have a consulate or whatever.
Right, in the UK.
So that'd be
There's
fun.
a
So that should be
number.
fun. Right. So
Yeah, I just think it sends a great message. We're not going to tolerate this. I mean, Eurovision, it was really many Irish people that were anti-Israel and
Right.
made Aidan Golan feel very uncomfortable.
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, but let's get back to Assad. I mean,
Assad. So that's the question. That is really moving quickly, the whole story in Syria. I mean, I've been watching it closely. We got
lightning
the
speed.
December 8th, Assad leaves his palace or whatever, his house. He doesn't even tell
lies
people.
to his staff and
Right.
to his family.
Yeah, the thing about the Assad regime is it's just the worst type of people, but that's got to be even the lowest of the low, which is he wasn't even loyal to his own little group around him.
Except for his wife and his children.
The wife and kids, and then he ran away, went to Russia or something.
Yeah.
His own brother didn't know. His own brother had to
brother.
slink away to Iraq or something.
Who was very involved with the regime.
Yeah, Maher Assad was in charge of one of the key corps or divisions
Yeah.
of the.
Yeah.
Right, so Assad basically didn't tell anyone. He disappeared,
He
And
slinks
then-
off into the night.
and within a day, there's a new man in town, Mohammed Abu al-Jolani.
Jolani, the name
Right.
is getting everyone. Golani,
Right.
Giuliani,
Giuliani. That's right. That's what they say.
They're saying Giuliani conspiracies.
And his real name is Ahmed Shara, something like that.
Right.
And he's immediately put together a team. He's met with the French, the British, the Germans have run to meet him. He's holding court. He's making all the right motions.
He's
right?
making nice with the West.
He is, but not not with America, which considers him or his organization, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a terrorist group.
Right. I
And
mean, they're
Israel
not going to
doesn't
be so easily soothed, I think.
doesn't
And then
seem like it. And Israel, I guess, is not gonna.
we're wary.
There might not be normalization there yet.
We're wary of them. They're on our border. I mean,
Exactly.
And not that long ago, they were jihadists, right?
Right. I mean, his background is I think he was connected to Al Qaeda. I mean,
Yeah.
and then right. I mean, that's not great.
He's
And
a warmer and cuddlier Al Qaeda.
right, Al Qaeda. Then he creates a group somehow called the
offshoot.
Nusra Front, I think.
Right.
Jabhat al-Nusra, and then it becomes this. Then eventually becomes this Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Then he ends up in northern Syria in this place called Idlib, which he runs for several years,
Right.
and no one cares about it. No one thinks about it. I mean, there are people
Right.
that follow it. Some people that care, but I'm saying in general,
He's a dark horse.
no one thought it was going
Right.
to burst out, and then all of a
Right.
sudden he's the head of Syria.
I know it's pretty incredible, and the speed with which a half-century regime fell. I mean, that's been fascinating to watch. The people have been so oppressed. The civil war has been going on since 2011, right?
Yeah, which is a long time.
And it seemed like the world didn't care, and it seems like the Syrians are doing it for themselves. I mean, they really did. I mean, they had some outside help, but on one hand, I'm very excited for the Syrians, but I'm wary because we don't know if this is just going to be another rebel group that's going to be oppressive and just take over and create chaos and.
Right. I mean, where there's chaos is opportunity. Someone I saw posted today said, "Isn't Syria like what happened to Libya? You remember when Gaddafi died and he did not end well. He was chucked. He was chucked out.
He got what he deserved.
He definitely got it, but in a bad place. He was bad.
Yeah.
So he was killed in 2011. The international community helped to top him a bit, and then the international community kind of stepped back. And what filled the vacuum in Syria was chaos, civil war, gangs, different militia groups, and then it was divided between the guys in Benghazi, which is one part of Libya, and then the people in the capital. And they were being backed by different groups. Russians in one part, the Egyptians, Turks. So people say, yeah, but that's like Syria. And what I responded to this person on posting on X, which formerly Twitter, was it's the opposite. Gaddafi died, and then Libya fell into a long civil war. Whereas in Syria, it's the opposite. It was a long civil war, and then the guy died. Well, he didn't die, but he disappeared. He
right,
left.
Exactly. And it's been a very long trajectory. Libya was, and also what seemed to happen in Libya, that seemed to happen like in Russia over the past bunch of years, is oligarchs seem to divide it up. I mean, they have the country's riches, and this is the opportunity now in Syria, even though the Assads have stolen a lot of the wealth of the country, but it's time to bring it back to some of the people. I don't know. It's giving me Saddam Hussein vibes too, though.
What? But it was good when Saddam was.
Well, he was the strong man, and then there was a vacuum when he left. So in a way, they regretted toppling him.
Some of them, but not the Kurds, or for instance, that liked getting rid of him because he genocided them.
Right. He certainly genocided them, and did he use chemical weapons on them?
Yeah, he had a guy literally who was named Chemical Ali, I think, because of killing them. I mean, no, he's
to hide your identity.
Right. Saddam was the worst type, and he was anti-Semitic, and he was anti-Israel, and he lobbed Scuds at us. Although in a way it worked out for Israel because the Scud attacks in '91 caused Israel to kind of realize and wake up and say, this ballistic missile threat, the missile threat is a big problem. We need to invest in missile defense. And at the time, if you recall, the U.S. had sent the Patriot batteries here, which were like a new system, and it turned out they didn't really work. So Israel and the United States spent decades developing a system called Arrow, which is against ballistic missiles. Now it's like Arrow 3, they're going to make Arrow 4.
Right.
We also built David Sling, and then we built the Iron Dome, and it became like a magic wand. And it's kind of crazy, but now we just intercepted a Houthi missile. Was it 2 days ago, I think? And that's because of that. You could say that you could thank Saddam in a weird, bad way for engendering that.
Yeah, one door closes, another opens.
Exactly.
You said a lot of different things that I want to get back to, but
where were you when this Houthi there was this Houthi attack a few days ago?
I can't remember, quite honestly.
I was somewhere in the office or somewhere.
Yeah, I was working, and I was on my own in the room working. So, and thank God in Jerusalem we don't feel it quite as much. So
because it was mostly Tel Aviv, and like 2 million people sent to shelters, but they're kind of in the Tel Aviv central, that Gush Dan area.
Right, and I feel guilty in a way that I haven't, had suffered as much as other people, but it's amazing that it got through the radar, and they're this ragtag band.
That's true. The thing is, they did down it, I think.
Yeah.
And The thing with the Houthis is, which always strikes me, is this is a group that if you'd said a year ago, or even, I'm telling you, there's these Houthis. It's a danger. People be like, "What is a Houthi?" I mean,
What's a Houthi?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a name. It means that it's unclear. Where did it come from? So this was a group that was really like not on our. You mentioned radar, not really on our radar.
Not on our radar at all.
And then it's in Yemen. It's more than 2,000 kilometers away, I think.
Right.
And it's not easy to get back at them when they do this. And Israel has been under threat now for a year or a few months because of the Gaza war, whatever. And we're dealing with this issue. I was in traffic when the missile happened. There were no sirens, but my wife texted me and she said, "Are you okay?" Or said, "Sirens." I said, "What sirens?"
Did anyone pull over? Did anyone?
No, but there weren't sirens right where we were. But I guess people in Jerusalem said they could hear some of the interceptions or something.
Oh, I was in my house with the heat going loud, so I think I missed that. But yeah, the Houthis, they were totally underestimated. Everyone had low expectations for them. They seemed like I don't know, nobody knew they existed, and then now they're a proxy, the Iranian proxy, and they're doing well, and we're fighting a 7-front war, and they seem to be the only proxy that we have.
Well, we knocked down a few of the fronts, though.
Right.
Hezbollah.
Right. No, all these fronts we knocked down, but somehow the Houthis
are still the last man standing.
That just keep annoying us.
They won't. Yeah, no, they're the last.
They're like the weak little kid who becomes this really strong athlete, and they're enjoying their moment on the football field.
And then throws rocks at you from a very far away.
Right.
And you have to catch them in a net.
Right.
Something like playing lacrosse, or maybe it's polo. I don't know. Polo's the one with the horses where you knock it with a mallet. Lacrosse is the one where you catch it in a net. And
then you beat someone over the head with it?
No,
that seems like the Houthi type game.
I don't think any of these traditional sports have
gentlemen's games.
They're not of real violence in them, except for hockey, where you're allowed to fight.
Yeah, and they do. And blood,
fighting,
I think.
Fighting is sanctioned in hockey.
Blood. I'm forgetting
blood
my
sport?
English. Blood jumps on ice. What's the word?
Blood does not. It congeals.
It congeals, or
yes.
I'm trying to say something that I can't remember because I've been in Israel too long. Can we just go back to Saddam for a second?
Yeah, what about him?
Okay, so Saddam and Assad, because like the scenes...
Who's worse?
Oh, I can't say, honestly. I think maybe we forget some of the things Saddam did? I don't know about that.
Well, hundreds of thousands killed.
Also,
he was in power from, the 60s till, so less time actually overall.
Right.
But wait, the Assad regime is a regime. It was the father and then the son. So it was Hafiz, Assad, and then Bashar.
Just seemed more... He seemed more in control of himself and less erratic. Like, he wouldn't just chemically gas his civilians if they're not doing things that he doesn't like. Like, Hafez would only do that if they were rebelling against him. He wouldn't have started this huge civil war.
He killed all these people in 82, but except for that, this uprising they faced, I think they tried to keep it on the down low in terms of like what they were doing.
And they kept a lid on it. They wanted the country to run.
Whereas Saddam was just like openly bad and evil.
He was a bad.
Ba'ath. But they're both Ba'athist regimes, and they're both gone. That whole era.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. The Assad regime was from this Alawite minority, but I'm saying they both had this Ba'athist Arab socialist nationalism thing.
Right.
And now that has been all swept away. It's like, well, whatever Iraq is now, it's partly like Iranian-backed militias, and then Kurds in the north, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Syria. It's got Kurds in the eastern part, which are U.S. allies, and I think Israel has been very friendly towards them, or tried to be. And then you've got this new regime in Damascus, which is in lack of clarity. So wait, what did you want to go back to about the Saddam Assad issue? So
what's really been interesting me watching Syria transform over these past days, really, is the toppling of the statues, the ransacking of the palace. I mean, this is a propaganda state, and they're getting rid of all those tokens, and people are celebrating in a way they haven't been able to for 50 years? But also they went into the presidential palace and they were able to see all the secret stuff they've been squirreling away. So we get some pictures of Assad in his little bathing suit, in his carefree, non-nuclear days, and we have Asma, who in many ways his wife, who I find worse than Bashar himself, because she was raised in Britain and should know better. She just spent all the riches. She has all this Hermes and jewel encrusted shoes, and then we have just little cards her kid made for her. I mean, it's crazy. We're getting a glimpse into their private life, and that's what happened when Saddam Hussein was overthrown. And they found many weird things. They found heroin. That was probably his nutty son, Uday. Yeah.
Kusai. There were two of them.
Kusai was normal. What was normal?
They were both bad, but Uday was the really crazy, psychotic one.
He was
Kusai
like
was more. You're right, and Kusai was more like the quiet, evil one, but like in a quiet way.
Right. If you toe the line, he won't kill you. But the second you step out of line, he'll kill you.
Well, Kusai was like the Martin Bormann. He was like one of these boring, evil bureaucrats, whereas Uday was one of the more flamboyant, extremist ones that were just openly cruel, like a Caligula type or something.
Right. Just going wild and killing people with swords at parties because they annoy him.
Yes, and now that's all over.
Yeah, I mean, never count out dictators, though. I mean, there's always going to be another one that needs to be toppled.
In the region? Are there any dictators? Let's exclude the Arab monarchies because they are monarchies, whatever. I mean, they're dictators, but whatever. They're monarchies.
Right.
But in terms of these old-style, Ben Ali in Tunisia is gone.
What happened to the Arab Spring?
Gone.
Yeah.
Assad, Saleh in Yemen is gone, replaced by Houthis.
Right.
And Assad is gone. There's no one left, right?
I'm probably missing someone. How about Algeria? What's going on over there?
That is a country that I don't know enough about.
Me too.
And what I will do is, when we do the next episode of this, I will promise that I will research it. I will find out what's going on there. And then we should compare notes and see what's happening.
I find that country fascinating because I think it might have the same Independence Day as Israel. I think when I did the astrology of independence.
Like us.
No, they definitely don't like us. And a lot of terrorists that did hijackings, I think, came from Algeria. So it seems like not a great place. So we should look into it because it doesn't get a lot of love.
No.
Yeah. So anyway,
let's go back now to the thing we promised we would talk about, which is because we talked about the region.
We did.
We haven't talked that much about what's happening in Israel, and we are located in Israel, so we should do it some justice. We wanted to talk about the prime minister going to Mount Hermon.
Right.
Along with the defense minister.
Mm-hmm. Herzi Halevi,
that's right, the head of the IDF.
Mm-hmm.
And some other people. The head of Northern Command, Northern Command, Uri Gordon, I think, was there. People. And the head of the Shabak or Shin Bet, one of them was there. Yeah. Right. So it's a bunch of people. Do we know how they got there?
I didn't hear anything. I mean, I didn't research their transportation. Do you think it was just a helicopter that made a...
So that's the question. I've been to the Hermon, not to that part, but to the one below it, the one that Israel had control for decades. So we drove up. You go to the ski resort at the bottom, right?
Right.
And then there's a road from there that kind of goes around a mountain, whatever, and you get to this place. It's like totally freezing, inhospitable. There's no trees up there.
Right.
I mean, it is cool that it's a ski resort.
A cruel landscape.
It's a ski resort. It is like the worst. I mean, it's like something out of like Lord of the Rings or something. I mean, it's just bad.
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies. That was an island at like sea level.
Right, but we have all types of topography here.
I think if you left the people up there, it would be a setting for a film like The Shining or something. Because I've been up there. They have these bunkers up there, whatever. I think it's back from someone, but it was built back when the Syrians ran it, and then it was converted or whatever. But it is just cold, inhospitable. Everyone's
like
inside.
most mountaintops. Yeah.
Yeah, so you could definitely be a setting for a kind of cabin fever type of movie where people are like stuck inside all winter and go totally nuts. I mean, hopefully they don't run out of food because we know what happens in those scenarios. That would not be good. So now we've controlled the top peak, the peak of the peak.
Because the point is that all this time we had the Hermon, but not the top.
Oh, imagine being stationed up there. Your whole life is spent looking up at like some other people up there and be like, yeah, but they got that, we got this.
Right, and they're the whole annoying reason that I have to be here.
Something like that. So now we have that.
So the ski lift would just stop like near the top.
So you take the ski lift. There's like one or two of them, I think, and you go up. Yeah, and then you'd be at some point, but I don't know if you could really see the Syrian positions from there, but you were up there. Now we can expand that maybe. Israel could put in maybe a toboggan or some sort of bobsled racing.
Yeah, like the Jamaican bobsled team.
Right. I mean, that's something you don't see a lot in Israel's bobsledding.
No, you don't. We do have an IDF skiing unit, though.
We have they're called the Alpinistes.
Yes, we do. I mean,
I love that. Israel even created during the war a new mountain brigade that is just for the Hermon and the Har Dov, the Mount Dove, which
ain't no mountain high enough for Israel.
Which means Mount Bear.
Mountain Bear. That sounds more like Putin.
Something like that. So we have a brigade that runs it now because they wanted to take the pressure off the divisions that were up there so that they could focus on the Hezbollah front and the Syrian front. And they said, we've got these mountains, let's create a special unit. So I guess the Alpinists team not come under that. But anyway, they're up there. Right. And they've got, and Bibi went up there.
Right, and maybe he fjorded his way up there. Do you think that?
Right, I mean,
on the snake path.
The thing is, I think you can fly a helicopter up there because it's not that high. 2,800 meters is high. But, I remember seeing that film, Into the, what was it called? The one where they go up to Everest? Not into the wild, into thin air.
Right.
So there's a scene in that, I think, where one of them had frostbite and they had to helicopter him out, not from the top of Everest, but we're talking from 25,000 meters or whatever, high.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I think they did take one of them out. So you can I think you can take it. It's not like there's no air up there. It's
right.
So I think, who knows, a helicopter, they drove up, whatever.
Yeah.
They did that photo shoot.
And they did make an impression because it really, I never think of it that way. I've been used to thinking of it as a ski resort, but it's so strategic.
Do you think Israel should keep this now that we've got it? Or what they said is there might be an arrangement in a year or so?
Yeah, I think we should just keep it. Why do we give away what we win?
Finders keepers.
Yeah, like the Temple Mount is in our hands. Like
the temple,
don't give it away.
The Temple of Hermon is in our hands. And I heard this, by the way.
Yeah.
There is some sort of a temple up there, not a Jewish one. I guess it's a pagan or Greeks or Romans, I don't know, whatever. There's something up there.
Right.
Because in the old days, pagans would worship mountains or whatever. So there's something going on up there.
Right. Well, that's interesting from an archaeological.
So, but we keep that. That could be the excuse. But
why would we give up such a strategic?
Unfortunately, we're not in UNESCO anymore.
Well, I mean, don't cry for me, Argentina. Like, I don't think too much about that.
Right.
Most UN agencies have not been very kind. What about UNIFIL?
It's hard to keep all these UN organizations.
I know.
They should have a UN organization that's just responsible for UN organizations.
For acronyms.
Right. There's that in the UN there's got to be an office of acronyms, and they literally have 30,000 people employed that do nothing, and they make huge salaries to do absolutely nothing.
It's like the Israeli Ministry of Regional Cooperation, which apparently does nothing but just got a massive budget.
Right. Well, it's for things like the non-normalization deal that hasn't happened that we talked about.
Right. So
when it happens, then they'll be involved in it.
We'll add it to the dictionary: non-normalization versus
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're coming now, I think, to the cuisine part of this story because I think it's important.
I love coming to the cuisine. Look, we're going to need to go back to the Iran part of the story.
Well, Iranian cuisine is very complicated.
It's very tasty. I love the burnt rice on the bottom.
What do they call that? It has a special name. I forgot. Anyway, it's hard to do it. I tried to do it once.
Yeah.
It's kind of like making a paella. There's always a bit of extra to it. But I wanted to talk about, since we're talking about the Hermon and it's cold and there's a mountain.
Right, and we want to cozy up.
What do we do when we cozy up?
We have mulled wine.
And soup.
Right.
It's soup season. Soup season. So why do they call it soup season? Because of that? Because it's cold?
But also because in Israel, this was one of the things I learned when I made Aliyah. It's not always soup season. In America, you can order soup off a menu anytime. Right. And here they'll be like, no, it's not the winter. We don't have it. Oh,
that's true. It is true. Because in Israel, you can always get like salads and things. But yeah, soup doesn't really appear that much.
No, it appears when it gets cold. Just like crembo. And sachlab.
That's interesting, right? I didn't really think about that. That's true. You start to see it in all these like cafes and restaurants. You start to see soups. Usually, maraq hadashim, which is lentils.
Right.
Maraq katom, which is what, from sweet potatoes?
Orange soup, yeah. Like butternut squash, something like that.
And then there's, what else?
God, what's the Kurdish soup with the heavy dough?
Kube, yeah.
Tons of kube.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what I made this week was I made French onion soup, which is traditional and simple to make, I think. Have you made
traditional in...
Well, no, in the sense that it's one of the staple soups that people think of, right? Like, I don't know.
Right.
And it's not like ridiculously complicated. It's like leek soup or whatever. Like, there's like basically one ingredient.
You put white wine in it, though?
So, so the one I made was you start with a bunch of onions.
Right.
Yellow or white onions. I never see white onions in Israel.
Most good recipes start with onions. White? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, right. But
my mother's always in search, by the way, of chunk light tuna. There's some shade discernments. Okay, anyway, go on.
Tuna in the French onion soup.
No, just bringing me back to the colors. Anyway, go on.
So what I did was I took the onions. You cut about 6 or 8 of them up, whatever, a few kilos or something. Cut them into relatively small pieces because I learned this. You want the pieces to be able to fit on a spoon when they're all, even though they're going to shrink a little bit, but like can't have these giant, long noodles of onion. So you put them in a bowl, a pot or whatever, and you with a little bit of butter, olive oil, whatever, and you leave them there on a medium or low heat until, for like 30 minutes. Caramelization, about 30 minutes to an hour, maybe more, until they start to kind of a bit brown.
Yeah.
And then you add a little bit of flour and a little bit of butter into the mix.
Roux.
You make a roux. Exactly.
With an X. Yeah.
That's right. And you want to thicken it up
Right.
a little bit, right?
Right.
And then I think at some point around that time, you want to deglaze it with, I
Right.
guess you can use a white wine. I saw some people were using a sherry.
Ooh, yes.
So some sort
That
of
makes
alcohol,
sense,
some
cooking
sort of
with
alcohol.
sherry,
And I apparently understood that if you don't want to put alcohol on things, because some people don't like that,
Right.
you can use apple cider vinegar.
Like a martini. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can use apple cider vinegar, you deglaze it, and then
Sounds great.
you've got to add a few other things. So you can put a few like fresh bits of thyme in it, or a little bit of garlic if you like, and then you put a bunch of beef stock and or a bit of chicken stock. So you want to
Right. If you're keeping it kosher, you want to make it margarine, I guess. But making it the
right. That's the
traditional
issue if you're going to
way.
put cheese at the end, right?
Right.
Right.
I would. But you know what? You could buy powder. I know this isn't the best way to do it, but you could buy powdered chicken or beef stock, and that way you get power of kind.
Well,
Yeah.
making beef stock, you might as well start. The thing about French onion soup is you probably do it in like 2 hours or so. But
Right.
if you want to have to make a beef stock, you got to do that like a day before.
Oh no, it
a
takes
while.
forever. Like bone
Right,
broth.
you got a bone
yeah.
broth, and you got to get put carrots in there and celery and all sorts of other things, and
Yeah.
and
A mirepoix. Where do I
that's
know
right.
these words?
Mirepoix is all that stuff. It's carrots, celery, onions, and then garlic,
Yeah.
rosemary, thyme, who knows?
Parsley, sage. Yeah.
Yes. So all that would be chucked into the beef stock, and then you'll take it all out, but you'd have the stock,
Right. Exactly.
and you have to buy a stock pot.
Which I definitely do not own. So I guess that's
Right.
a very tall pot.
I don't know. It's like one of those things that's like this. Look,
Yeah.
you don't really need it, but the point is that if you want to do that whole extra
It's
process,
a whole serious operation.
well, you got to think. Yeah, you got to think ahead.
Think a bunch of
So
stuff.
I did all that, the soup, then I cooked it down for a while until it was like, it had the flavors kind of released.
It had body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I served it with like a bit of like a crostini or something, like
Oh,
with a
that
bit
sounds
of
glorious.
some sort of cheese on top.
Yeah,
of
you
it.
got to get a whole like chunk of cheese.
Right,
Yeah.
you can use like Gruyere or Comte or you can get I guess Swiss cheese or Gouda. I mean, you have lots of
Right,
choices.
even Parmesan, any type of cheese in there,
Right.
you're golden. And then some type of crouton and that and sometimes in Israeli restaurants, I think I've seen them put it into bread bowls. I mean, that is definitely
the bread bowls
gilding the lily, I think.
The bread bowl's a win because you eat
Yeah.
the soup
and
then you
get
eat the
bread.
bowl.
You eat the bowl.
Right.
So you don't leave any waste.
No way.
And you don't have to throw anything in the garbage. Except for, unless you have a bread spoon.
Yeah, you can
Okay,
have a bread
sorry,
spoon.
I digress. So that sounds absolutely delicious. Seth, you're making me hungry.
I am, right?
Yeah.
So now I think we should begin to wrap up because we'll get something to eat. But
Right.
let's just do one last thing. Let's
Okay.
just do predictions.
Okay, we should talk about Iran because is there a podcast without Iran? Did a tree fall in the forest?
What's the question we have about Iran?
Our question is: should we be worried about a nuclear Iran?
I'm not worried about it. I've seen that movie Doctor Strangelove, and the subtitle of it is "How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb." I'm not
Yeah.
worried. Not worried.
Good. I'm
Are
not
you
so
worried?
worried either.
Not worried. Okay.
Maybe we're nuts, but I don't
Saudi
think so.
normalization, yes or no?
Wait, I want to go back to Iranian. Though.
Okay. Yes.
Because it came out. What was it that you said that now they're saying there's no more agreement. There's no more U.S. agreement with them.
Oh, right. So there's some sort of question about. Well, I read a thing about that the 2015 deal is just not relevant anymore because it's been so long and they have so much uranium they stockpile.
And it's always been a sham.
Right. It's a sham. So.
But didn't Biden just give them a lot of money? Because he has like 2 weeks left to
I'm
do
never
it.
really clear on what that's all about. I mean, I've heard
I don't
that
know why
story.
we would arm them with money.
But the Trump
Yeah.
administration's coming, and I guess that's
know.
all going to stop.
I think it's going to stop.
The buck stops here.
Yeah, they know.
A line in the sand.
Get it in while you can.
Right,
Yeah.
but I guess that's the question. So do we think they'll get... We're not worried about the bomb, but we think they're going to get one next year or something? I mean, is that a
I
possibility?
mean, I think they'll try to seem strong like they always do with their rhetoric, but I think they're weakened, and Trump will keep them in line. I can't predict. Iran is quite evil, and like they just are always looking for new ways, but they're pretty deflated at this point.
Right, the
Yeah.
regime is kind of... It doesn't know what to do.
His kafia is looking tired.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we got that.
Okay, Saudi normalization.
Well, what do you think? Let's say within the next 6 months. Yes, no?
Probably. It's if I had to bet 80-20 or
Okay. You're a yes. I'm
a definite. Oh,
I'm a
not
no.
in the next 6 months?
I don't think it will
It's
happen.
too soon after the
I don't-
inauguration?
I'm going to say I don't think so.
No.
But you
Until
do.
well, not before the end of the war, maybe October
Right.
7th war. maybe once that's done, then we can.
I assume that, but they want other. I feel like their desire for the Palestinian state is like a bridge too far certainly for the current Israeli government.
Do you think there's a true desire there?
I think they want lip service.
Right, but
and the Israeli government is generally, not even about lip service. So that's, I think,
especially
a key
this government, yeah.
Right. So I guess that would be. We have to see what happens.
Yeah.
But that's
so maybe I
should
walk back my prediction, but I do think if it's not going to happen officially, it's happening.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up. It's been great to have you. We'll hope we see you soon.
Yeah.
Next month.
I've loved talking with you. It's
Yes.
always a pleasure, and discussing all types of events.
Right. Well.
Yeah.
Have a great week.
You too. Bye.
Bye.